Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Flipping Out. Today's guest is Sean Gerbeau. Did I pronounce that right? Your last name?
Yeah, you got it, man. Sean Gerbeau.
Sean Gerbeau. That actually sounds way better, Sean Gerbeau. And he's in a couple masterminds with me, and it's a great real estate story out of Columbus, Ohio. But more importantly, and one of the things that he teaches and does that has a separate company from his real estate company is VAs and working with VAs. We're going to get a lot into that because if you're in real estate, you need VAs, right? I mean, you probably have multiple of them, Sean. I know I do. And with what you do, you probably require more than what I do. So before we get into the VAs, why don't you give us a little background on what got you in real estate, when you started, and what drove you to get into real estate?
Yeah, so I was working out in the agriculture industry out in California. I had a small business and things were changing a lot. I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew I didn't want to go back to working for somebody else. So I just started really geeking out on any kind of educational material I could get my hands on, listening to tons of podcasts. And yeah, I was living in California at the time, but I researched a bunch of different real estate markets, and Columbus was the one that seemed to make the most sense to me. So I kind of uprooted everything, took a chance, moved to Columbus in beginning of 2018. From being on Bigger Pockets, I found a little group of people to start talking to once I got out here. And one of the people was somebody who wanted a partner on a wholesaling company. So I worked with that gentleman for about a year. Wasn't really a good partnership. We definitely clashed really hard, different skill sets or different I don't know, motivations, but it was an amazing opportunity. I never really thought to get into wholesaling. I always just kind of assumed that was what people did who didn't have, the ability to do anything else. But man, I was completely wrong on that, because I pretty quickly realized that wholesaling opens the doors to so many other opportunities. It really teaches you everything about real estate. And then, I mean, if you're the guy providing deals for people, it's pretty easy to make friends and get plugged in. So so for about the first 2.5, 3 years, I did nothing but wholesale. And then I started realizing that there was a lot of opportunity being wasted there by not rehabbing and holding on to rentals. And as I've seen Columbus change a lot in the last 5 years I've been here, I realized I was going to be driving around wishing, looking at all the houses that I assigned that I could have held on to. So a few years ago, we started holding on to a lot and doing a lot of flips. Mm-hmm. And about 2 years ago, I met up with my business partner on the virtual assistant side, and he had been working for us for a couple of years. But he told me that he thought that he could do our cold calling a lot better. He actually used to work for the company that was doing our cold calling. Yeah. And at first I was pretty hesitant. I did a small split test with him. Within about a month and a half, he was able to outperform the company I had been using. And so at that point, I went all in. We gave him all of our cold callers. We had him start doing texting. And then I'd also always done lead management in-house. And at that point I was like, why not try it out? Had him start doing our lead management. And that was about a year ago where we started really thinking like, okay, this could be something bigger. Let's start doing some services for just people in my network, people that I've met at masterminds or people I had a close relationship with. And that's been going really well over the last year. So just in the last few months, we've been expanding from that and actively bringing on new clients.
It's huge. I mean, I'm going to go back to the beginning where you went from California in agriculture, which had to be hard in California agriculture with the way the government interferes with everything, right?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about that. What was that like? I mean, obviously you left that and you wanted to leave that, but that's pretty interesting. You're the first person I've ever known come from the agricultural industry into real estate.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty interesting field. It was actually a medical cannabis industry.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I just it just grew old on me. I was just ready for something new. But I did have a lot of freedom there, and just being my own boss, that was something I was never going to give up in the future. And I kind of, I bought a house, fixed it up for after living in it for 2 years and selling that. So after doing that cycle a couple times, that seemed like a natural progression. And I had a couple friends who'd always been into real estate and who had been trying to push me into that.
Mhm. And then what you did is you researched the heck out of everything and found Columbus to be a good market, which was a great move on your part. I mean, Columbus is an outstanding market and it's exploded in part, you have the university there, but also in part because the hedge funds really started buying into that market as well. Have you wholesaled to any hedge funds in that market?
Yeah, no, we're end of 2021 and most of 2022. It was amazing. It made it really easy for people. I think people definitely got spoiled, and that kind of slowed down a little bit. But yeah, I'd say probably there was a good year span where 30-40% of our deals were going to hedge funds.
That's huge because you think about it from, well, not just a cost perspective, time perspective and everything. You kind of know what they want. You really know what they want. So it's when you have a big time buyer, whether it's hedge fund or an individual or a company, and you know what their buy box is, when you're going to pick up properties on the acquisition side, it makes things a lot easier. You know what you can fit and give to them, right?
Absolutely.
So the disposition side makes it obviously 10 times easier. You almost don't need a dispo person at that point, or a really reduced disposition person when you have that hedge fund buying a pretty good amount. But at the same time, when they pull back, then you need to go all in on dispositions again, right? And try to find the different buyers out there again. Has there been any of that? Have you had to deal with much of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've seen a lot of people in this market who were just completely dependent on that hedge fund exit strategy, and just like, people who were used to being able to lock up prices for something that no normal investor is going to pay.
Yeah.
So as that shifted, probably starting July 2022, we weren't overly dependent on the hedge funds. Like we've always had, because we'd been doing it long enough before the hedge funds came to town. We were used to that reality, that norm, before, the kind of the dumb money came to town. But yeah, I've seen it wasn't great for us, but it didn't hurt us that much because we were used to, the way it was before. But I definitely saw a lot of investors who were, just thought that it was going to be that way forever.
Totally. And they don't understand these people turn it on and turn it off really quick. The hedge funds, that is, as far as they're buying and, even are selling and stuff. There might be opportunities when they start selling to get decent deals from those hedge funds on the purchase side down the road. We will see. But question for you. So I know in your market, somebody I've known for a long time, way back in the day, Collective Genius. Do you know somebody named Dave Payerchin or
Oh yeah, absolutely. Dave and RJ.
Dave and RJ, yeah. Great. Yeah, they're big in your market there. I think, do they do a lot of turnkey stuff? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I know that was their focus for a lot of years. I think they're doing a little bit of everything now, but that's where they really built their business.
Yeah, no, they did. They built it over the years. I got to watch them 13, 14 really grow. And it was unbelievable what they went through, and they transformed too. These were two guys when they were younger, out of shape, right? Heavier. And they both dedicated themselves to getting in shape and lifting and losing weight. They were both unbelievable. They did an awesome job. And they do that same type thing with their business. That's how they grow their business. Same model, right? You could do the same thing with your body that you do with your business, how you improve and grow that. If you make the same dedication to your body, you could do those same kind of things. And they did it to both at the same time, which is really, really impressive. And I know they've been big in that market for a very long time. And I think they're into coaching as well right now, to an extent. I don't know to what extent they are, but I'll have to reach out to them. But it's interesting. It's a small enough market. You figure a lot of you guys know each other, the big investors, and there's a lot of investors in your market, right? It's a pretty investor driven market. Is it not?
Absolutely. Yeah. With all the changes the city's seen, and it's changing, but it's always like, growing population, a lot of big companies here, and then for a long time, just really cheap purchase price. I know we're still like the significantly below the average median home price in the US, but at the same time, just huge sections of town completely being transformed.
Totally. So I'll give you my like transition when I was living in Pennsylvania back in the day there a couple of years ago. When I started in real estate, I started focusing on Pennsylvania, right? Then I kind of started expanding out. I went west to Pittsburgh. I was in New Jersey and Virginia and Delaware a little bit. Then I remember first expanding out to Ohio. My first property I bought out there, I think was in Youngstown, Ohio, then Akron, Ohio. Then I started buying more and more in Ohio and Indiana. And to this day, two of our favorite states, Ohio and Indiana, they're still great. And the reason they're so good is because they literally have everything, right? You can fix and flip and make money in that market. You can buy and hold and make money in that market because it's a great rental market. It's a great fix and flip market. If you want to do owner financing, you can do it in that market. You can literally do anything. And it's a linear market. So it doesn't have these crazy ups and crazy downs. It is just steady. If I'm going to recommend people like states to start in, Ohio and Indiana are usually our first two, and the Carolinas close seconds to behind Indiana, Ohio. They just have this great history of nice, slow, steady growth. If you're playing in this business long term, these are the markets you want to be in. So kudos to you for going to that market one and really taking advantage of it there and being in the best market in Ohio, in Columbus. In my opinion, it's still the best market out there. I know Cleveland's good, right? Cleveland's got good spots, bad spots. The suburbs are good, but I think Columbus, because it's so driven, the town's got growth, the college, university, Ohio State, that being there, there's a lot of opportunities. And there's another one I didn't even talk about. You got rentals, but there's also student housing there, right? How big is student housing in Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, I think Columbus goes back and forth with, I think Texas A&M is the biggest university in the country. So they're typically around 100,000 students. So it's huge.
It is. That's a big play. And I went to a smaller school, two smaller schools, one in the Poconos, Pennsylvania, East Stroudsburg. Then I transferred to Drexel in the city in Philadelphia, and they were just tiny. And there was still a good bit of student housing. I can only imagine how much there is down there in Columbus, because a lot of the students, they do want to go just off campus, right? Get a little bit of freedom. So again, good spot if somebody wanted to do student housing would again be Columbus, Ohio, that market. So now you're doing more, getting back, you started out and you did a lot of wholesales, which is the way to go. But you and I both had the same negative connotation about wholesaling. We always think of wholesaling as like the lower end of it, when truly it's like one of the greatest and most free parts of real estate, and that you're not getting stuck with all these properties, right? You're literally just wholesaling, signing contracts, moving them, low risk, right?
Yeah.
Low risk and good rewards. Yeah, you might only get $15,000 on a deal compared to $50,000 on a flip, but your time, you're just turning them, you're just doing them quickly. So, and then you transition. This is the way everybody who gets in real estate investing should transition. You should start, unless you have a great skill set in fix and flipping, you should start on the wholesale side, build everything up, then get into the rental, the fix and flip, and continue it from there. So now, a couple of years ago, you started getting into the fix and flips. How much would you say your model or percentage has flipped? Like we used to be 80% wholesale and 20% fix and flip. We flipped that on its head over the past few years, and we're probably 20% wholesale and 80% fix and flip. But we're coming back now. We're coming back now to that 50%, and we want to get back to maybe 75-25 or 70-30, somewhere in that range, or even back to 80-20, depending on how the market goes. What are your numbers, and what direction are you wanting to take this in?
Yeah, so right now I'd say we're probably about 50% wholesale, 30% flips, and 20% rentals.
Okay.
Last year, before interest rates went up, we were probably 30% rentals, 30% flips, and 40% wholesaling. So, I mean, that's another great thing about this business model. The way we have it set up is it's very easy to pivot. If rates go up or days on market go way up, or whatever. It's doesn't take long at all to adjust from, okay, I'm just gonna wholesale this property instead of flipping it. Yeah, and I think it really depends a lot on the market as far as, what my future model will look like. I would love to, I'm just a huge advocate of holding stuff long term.
Mhm.
So I know there's not going to be anything I regret in 20 years that I held on to instead of getting rid of it, or very, very little. So that's always that's always my number one preferred exit strategy. But at the same time, you got to do it where the numbers make sense. And if you can flip something or wholesale something, you get that right balance. So you keep the lights on and save the capital freed up for the better deals to hold on to.
No, absolutely. You probably do. It sounds like your model set up very similar to ours in that we'll assess it. All right, if we can make a good wholesale quick flip on this and make a good bit of money, we'll do that. If the difference is significantly more, you flip it, fix and flip it, maybe you do that, right? So you kind of look at it probably each deal individually, or if it's in a great area for cash flow where you can really rent it and pull money out of that potentially tax-free on a cash out refinance, then you look at it for each of those different reasons. We do the same thing, and I think it's smart. You kind of have to do that, right? To stay fluid.
Yeah. But then how old is the house? How much potential problems am I going to run into in flipping this that I can't see? Or, there's a lot of areas in Columbus that are quickly turning and getting a lot nicer. So those are the areas where there might be an older house that I really don't want to rehab for a rental, but I know in 10 years, this area is going to be, a neighborhood. So I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah, you're looking for long-term rewards on that one, long-term play where you're going to get much better appreciation in those particular markets, which is a great play. My biggest regrets always are obviously going to be the same that you would probably have too, having not kept those properties from years ago. I'll go back to an opportunity I looked at when in 2009, when the market was crashing, right? 2008, 2009, I was in Denver, Colorado, looking for properties in 2009, 2010, 2011. There were properties I could have picked for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 grand all day long. They're all worth $250,000 or more, or 3, 4, 500,000 in this. If I would have just bought, call it 10 to 20 and just held them for the time from then to now, right? Just did minor renovations, just rent them out, I would be sitting pretty. So big regrets of not, right? I didn't know at that point that Silicon Valley was moving from California to Denver, that Denver was becoming a hub. It was becoming a new big tech hub, right? So I didn't anticipate that. So now, because I missed out on that, now I look for all these different things. I'm looking for trends. And if, speaking of trends and speaking of the tech market, if you look at the markets being ravaged right now, they are those markets that were the tech markets, right? You go in there, Oakland, San Francisco, you go to, a lot of those people moved to Arizona. Arizona's got too much inventory now, right? They're getting hammered. And then in blanking on a big city in Texas, Austin, thank you, getting hammered right now, right? All these areas compared to the newest tech hub, which is Raleigh, North Carolina, which, this last couple of years has had growth because it's only had a couple of years of growth and not as many as those other markets have. It's not going to have the same correction because it didn't have that same appreciation up that those markets have. So that tech sector, that's something I'm keeping my eye really closely on, because as you know, the NASDAQ got destroyed last year and tech jobs are still being bled out the wazoo right now. And also, as you know, tech jobs, those people that have those jobs, they're high paying jobs. They buy nice houses. So, and they're on unemployment right now. So what's in 6 months from now, when unemployment runs out, what's the market going to be like? How many less buyers we can have in that particular price point, which is usually what, 400,000 to several million, depending on how much they're making there. So it's something to keep your eye on there. You're not really affected in Columbus, Ohio as much there. That's not really a tech hub. It's more service jobs, probably community and blue collar working class jobs, more of that.
A lot of banking, a lot of government, you got, the capital here, but so it's pretty well diverse or spread
and
out.
Stable, a very stable market because of that too. I don't think you see any kind of big correction in Columbus, Ohio. I just don't. Like there's too much demand to be there in that particular area. It's just, and that's one of those safe linear markets. So something to be said about that for sure. What now? One of the questions I have for a lot of guests like to bring in, because I give my opinion on where I think the market's heading. Where do you think the market's headed? And where are you looking at for 2023, 2024, as far as what the real estate market is looking like to you?
Oh man, I wish I had the crystal ball, but you know, I guess one thing is when COVID first hit, I thought there's no way that the entire global economy can shut down for a year, 2 years and not be affected. And I mean, I was completely wrong. Like as I was predicting, the crash, complete opposite. Yeah.
We all
So, it's honestly, man, I'm really somebody who focuses in on the moment, and I'm not like too far like ahead of there, but hopefully interest rates and inflation continue to go down and that everything kind of stabilizes. But yeah, man, I wish I knew.
I think where what you just said there, you hit two super key points, right? Interest rates stabilizing, which you have, and they've been dropping, and of course, inflation being hopefully tamped down and controlled, right? Because inflation eats into everything. The more inflation we have, the less house you can afford. So all these factors come together. So listen to whether Tim Hurriage from RCN Capital. He was on a couple of times ago on Family Mastermind, giving like the state of the mortgage interest rates out there, state of the market, what's going on. He anticipates that interest rates on the mortgage side for investors will be around 5.5% interest rates by the third quarter of this year, which bodes well for us, right? Because that means owner occupants will be low fives, maybe upper fours, which will lead to a very good affordability for buyers out there, much better affordability out there, which means more buyers. Problem is there's not enough inventory, right? As we know, this inventory, that's going to push prices up even further. And I just can't see how prices can really go up any further at this point. Like that, they got pushed so much up artificially from COVID and cheap money, PPP money out there, people getting money from the government, unemployment, all that it can only go up so far. And I think we hit that peak. And now I personally want to see prices stabilize. Maybe we get like 1-2% growth during a year, or, no more than 10% down during any given year. But I'm seeing a healthy, in different markets that I'm in, I'm seeing a really healthy spring market coming because of last year when those rates were 3.25% to start January and went up to 7.25% in September. We lost 3 million buyers. By them dropping from that 7.25% into the 6 or upper 5s right now, we're gaining at least 1.5 million, close to 2 million buyers back. And what I anticipate is those people that missed out, that couldn't get before, are probably on the sidelines drilling, waiting to jump in. They can't wait to jump back in. Spring market might be the perfect opportunity, but I see like this short-term buying window that people will be in there. And then I could see it really, like the demand really dropping after that.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see where it's going. But have you seen prices in your market stabilize? Are they going down? Are they still going up? What do you have in Columbus, Ohio market?
Yeah, so I mean, everything was bonkers springtime 2022. And then right in the summertime, things started going down. Fall time was pretty bad, but ever since we made it through the holiday season, things are getting back to being kind of crazy and are definitely on the upswing.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing here. I'm in Florida and different markets. I'm in Texas, in Michigan. Michigan, surprising. Like normally we get properties there during the winter. I don't normally like to get them during the winter because there's normally so much snow, people can't get to them. This year there's been demand, so people are getting to them regardless, and we're moving those properties there. Tennessee, the Carolinas, Georgia. Like I said, lots in Florida, lots in Texas, and Wyoming. I've been doing stuff in Wyoming. That's where I've been holding a lot of rentals. It's like a hidden gem for me. I love that market up there. Cost, affordability, the multi-units that I'm in there, and the super low real estate taxes that they have up there. I really, really like. So no, it's interesting. We'll have this again. I think we'll have this nice little surge here in the spring. We'll see where it goes and leads us into 2020, late 2023 to 2024. Now I want to jump into your other business, because this is something that if you're in real estate business, you cannot operate without VAs. And you started off with this VA company, or you didn't, you kind of had a lot of people coming to you. That's why you created the business. Am I right? Like you had these VAs you were utilizing and people came to you?
Yeah, that and just realizing we used a lot of third parties in the past. Like we've always used our own virtual assistants. We've always gone out and sourced them for like a lot of admin work, but at the same time, as far as like cold calling, texting, doing different things that are very operations intensive, we would usually just go ahead and outsource that to a third party because it was just too much work. And at the end of the day, our time is better spent talking to sellers, doing the acquisition side, growing the business, not messing with dialers or all of the kind of back end work involved with that. But then once I got connected with my partner who's runs that whole operation side, that's when I really realized, okay, this is something that a lot of the other companies we've used in the past are letting us down in a lot of different ways. I know what I expect. I know what I like from different companies I've used in the past, and I also know what I don't like from them. So I think we can build a better product.
And that's usually the way it goes. That's how innovation companies get better, right? You utilize a company, you get frustrated by certain aspects and you're like, we could do this better, right? And that's how you create this company that does those things better. And that's how things evolve and get better, right? All these different companies come out there. But one of the most impressive things you were saying is that these VAs were outperforming your internal VAs on cold calling, which is the hardest thing to do in real estate business, right? Cold calling probably is the lowest rate of return, I would guess. That and text blasting, maybe, I don't know. But that's pretty impressive that they're having good results with cold calling. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the guy that we partnered up with, he had worked at a bunch of different companies and had done their operations, had done their quality control, and he just knew it's kind of the same, the same thing I was saying from my experience is he knew what worked and he didn't know, and he knew what didn't work. So he knew all the systems really well. So that was, and then he knew that I knew how to do sales and marketing and grow a company. So we just kind of meshed together, and it's been a really good relationship so far.
And that's awesome. I talked to you because there's some I may be able to utilize on our end, on the auction side, for being able to use VAs as acquisition managers, because you don't necessarily have to make calls out, although you have people that can call out and be able to buy properties on the phone there as well. But it's like kind of catering. You could train people to do specific tasks, right? You give them tests to find out whether that engineering mindset, whether they're a sales mindset, or whatever, or they're just a daily task person, right? So talk a little bit more about how you figure that out and assess them.
Yeah. So we use predictive index. So we try to, like, if we're talking to a client and they want somebody, like I know me and you were talking about this the other day, Paul. Yes. If you have somebody who needs to be more analytical and, has that kind of mind of staring at spreadsheets and analyzing stuff, that's 100% not my skill set. But with predictive index, you can test for that. So you build out the ideal profile for what the client needs, and then you can have different people take those tests and say, okay, this person, has that profile you're looking for. We can connect them with you. We can tell you how this person learns, what the best way to train them would be, and get that right skill set for the right job that the client has.
And you might need somebody that's on the phone they can speak very good English, right? Because your VAs are from Egypt, correct?
Correct.
So you want somebody that can speak good English. So you got people that specialize in that. They're fluent in English and can communicate on the phone to different people to sellers, to buyers, to whatever you need to. So very, very important. Sounds like you got something that kind of meets every standard that of what somebody's going to need in a real estate investment business, or even non-real estate probably as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've always had the mindset of starting slow and really building the systems and processes out. But, I think on the virtual assistant side, there's so many different verticals you could go into, and so many different industries that can use people, who are highly educated, highly skilled, very motivated. Like I think I might have told you this, that in my own business, we had 8-9 people in office, and then we've completely flipped it to where we have 3 or 4 people in the office and 10 people virtually, just besides any cold callers or texters. So there are a lot of better, I mean, there's something to be said about having office culture and being face to face with people. And there's definitely roles that you have to have or are best, in office in person. But there are a lot of roles where you can have that person work remotely. I think we all found that out during COVID.
Totally.
And certain people, like, they're more motivated to be able to work from their home. And, like with everything, you can track data, you can track KPIs, you can see where the performance is. And it's not like you have to be there having somebody punch in and punch out. Ultimately, the numbers are going to tell you the story of whether they're performing and, whether it's a good fit or not.
Yeah. And even these big companies, you think about a lot of the customer service people that you get are overseas people, whether they're Pakistan, whether they're from India, Philippines. So a lot of these big corporate companies, these big monster corporations are doing the same thing with VAs. And we've been using VAs for years, and they are affordable. They do help keep your costs down. It's also nice in this aspect. Let's say from the real estate investing side, if you have a team of 10 people, and the market totally tanks. Think of the 2008 financial crisis. I know a lot of people had to wipe out their whole entire staff. That's really hard when they're all working together and they're all with you. A lot easier to turn them on and off on the VA side when they're in a different country, right? That's definitely, there's something to be said with that too. But the cost, think about how much this saves cost, because here in the States, what it costs for labor to do the same thing as what you're getting somebody in the Philippines, where your average hourly rate is about $2 to $2.50 an hour. Totally different ball game, right? So you can really cut costs down if you have tasks that fit those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And people who are really good, I mean, you can pay them 2 or 3 times what they would normally get paid.
Yeah.
And just the amount of loyalty and just knowing at the end of the day that you're changing people's lives is, I mean, that for me, that's huge.
Oh, that is absolutely huge. Yeah, we took somebody that was $2.50 originally up to $5 an hour and made their day like you wouldn't believe. That just doubled their income overnight. And yeah, they were super ecstatic about it. That was our first one. Once you get them, and once they're trained up, and once they are useful to you, you got to reward them too, just like you would any other employee, right? And there's different ways to do that. I know on some people are actually even incentivizing their VAs, even though they get an hourly rate too. The more they generate revenue on that particular property, the more they get paid on it as well.
Oh yeah,
so that's becoming.
I mean, 100%. I mean, I always believe like paying on performance, paying commission.
Totally.
I mean, that's how you motivate people. I think every job I've ever had, starting off as a golf caddy when I was 13 years old, like I'm working for tips. I'm going to try way harder if my effort is going to be, rewarded by how happy the client is. So same with that. Like, if you're working in some kind of, and even with like lead managers or other roles, like like I always tell clients too, like give them something other than their base pay, incentivize them, because they're obviously going to be a lot more motivated and eager to do whatever they can for you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I want to talk a little bit more about your VAs and the different positions. And obviously there's different hourly rates for different VAs. So for your basic old administrative, just as like menial task, inputting data, that kind of thing, what can somebody expect to pay for that type of a VA?
Yeah, so really the way we're doing things right now is we're doing cold calling. We're doing lead management. And then we can do more specialized jobs.
Mhm.
But right now we're really focusing on the cold calling, texting, and lead management side. Cold calling $7 an hour. Once a lead manager, or excuse me, once a cold caller has thrived at their position and they have the right PI assessment to do more of a sales position, and they understand all the basics of real estate, and they have the opportunity to move up into a lead manager. And we charge $8 an hour for lead managers.
Mhm.
And then texting comes down to how much text you're sending a month.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Makes total sense. And that's those are reasonable rates you could expect to pay out there for somebody who's cold calling, right? Good
Yeah.
luck trying to find somebody in the States to do it at $7 an hour,
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you can go off on Upwork and find people for $4, $3, $4,
Mhm.
$5, $6 an hour. But I did that when I first started, before I started using a third-party system. And for some people it works out really well, but there's also a lot of back-end stuff, dealing with different dialers, dealing with making sure they're actually working, tracking their KPIs and all of that. So, you do pay a little bit of a premium, but you get that complete management to where you're able to put your time into the revenue generating activities of going and meeting sellers and signing deals and doing the really important stuff, rather than, going back and forth with different software companies and trying to figure out why something's not working, or to pay a little extra to not have any of the headaches.
It's way worth paying more for convenience, right? Because our most valuable asset is time, right? And time can be saved by having that. I'm gladly paying more to not have to deal with all those different things. Like you said, having to worry about all those different technology things that could just suck up the whole day. Lets you focus on what you need to do, the more important day-to-day stuff to keep your business running big time. So Real Estate Solutions is named it. Real Estate Solution VAs, right? Is it RESVA? What is your website for that?
Yeah, it's res-va.com.
VA.com. Beautiful. For anybody who wants to look and inquire a little bit about finding the VAs, and what we'll do is we'll make sure it's in the show notes here too. And I'll work to get a link from you, Sean, so that I can link it on my YouTube page as well, and put on multiple things, and also link it for our students, because I know a lot of our students use VAs too, and talk a little bit about that. And we have basically what we do is we're buying online auctions. You could have 500 to 1,000 properties you're looking at. So we have certain criteria that we're looking at, certain different areas. So we can give them a spreadsheet and give them certain criteria to look for, and then they can dwindle it down, right? Bring those numbers from 500 or 1,000 down to like 100. And then we can give them a further set of criteria for the next thing we're looking at, and then they'll whittle it down even more, right? So this type of a task, a lot of our students use, because that is such a time suck doing that. And then they can concentrate on, all right, here's now 50 properties I can look at. Now I can comp those properties. Well, if you wanted to, you could even have a VA who's specialized and understands how to comp. I'm sure you guys can probably train them, but people can train them themselves as well, like we've done. And then they comp it for you. Now the only thing you're doing is bidding. And then, of course, if you replace yourself as a bidder, you could do that and have them do that as well, right? You can have somebody doing all these different roles and literally take yourself out of the business and just manage it. So,
yeah, no, I mean, it's 100% the 80-20 rule. Like, where's your time best spent at? And if you can delegate something to somebody else so you can focus on those most important activities, that's how you're going to grow your business.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. So you've been working for yourself for a long time now. I do have one other question I neglected asking in the beginning, and you might have even answered it to an extent. What made you choose real estate as compared to other business ventures, other different types of business? Was there anything particular that brought you there? Was there a book you read or just people that you knew?
Yeah, it was I had a good friend who had always done real estate, and he told me for years and years that I could get into it. I'd always, heard the thing, more people have become wealthy through real estate than
Yeah.
any other trade. Yeah, and then I just, it was people that I knew and respected who had a lot of freedom in their lives, which has always been number one for me, is freedom and being able to travel, being able to get out and not being, tied to the desk the entire time, being able to work virtually. Yeah, it was a combination of different things. And yeah, and it's, it's safe. It's not somebody's always going to need a place to live. You're in a growing city. They're not building any more land around downtown Columbus. So.
Right. No, I mean, it was all those reasons are the reasons I gravitated towards it as well. That just makes total sense. It is, I call it, it's like a lifestyle business with real estate, right? I tailor the business around my life, how I want to live it, what I want to do. Like back in the day, this is my second year of not coaching travel baseball. I had coached it for 11 years in a row, right? So I would lose my springs and early summers, so much of my business with that. But I knew I was going to be doing that. I decided that was just what I want to do. So quarter two always sucked for me in comparison to quarter 1, 3, and 4. Yeah. So you can literally tailor your business with real estate around your life, where you can't do that with all the other business, a lot of other businesses out there, right? So I love it too, because it's a lifestyle business. And it just offers a lot. And there's in this industry, there's a lot of camaraderie with like people like you and I. We meet at different mastermind groups and we talk about what's working, what's not working, these kind of things. It's awesome. There's nothing like it. Another thing, like you said, I think it's 90% of the world's millionaires were made millionaires by real estate. That was their biggest driver. Real estate led them to that. That's my dad, who owns an office furniture business, right? His father created that. My grandfather started as like office supplies. He morphed it into office furniture. And then he built a warehouse, and he had bought a couple other properties from the business there. And now his retirement is rental income from those buildings. Yeah. He's dwindled that business down to next nothing. So real estate, again, made him a millionaire. So just goes to show, even if you're in other businesses, real estate is usually the driver to make most people wealthy and millionaires over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel very grateful and appreciative to found it every day.
Well, Sean, I really, really appreciate your time, and we're going to put all the info for your VA company out there, or www.res, it's -va.com. We'll put that in the show notes, get all that info. And if anybody wants to reach you for anything, is that the easiest way for them to reach you, contact you, is on that website there?
Yeah, or Instagram, or my email is Sean@res-va.com.
Sean, SEAN, right?
Correct. Yeah.
At res-va.com. Beautiful. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. And Sean, thank you for being my guest. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks, Paul.
Yep. Thank you.